It's December 27th, 2013. It's 2 a.m. My name is Brian Cox. I'm about to go through a lengthy story about some police harassment that I've been experiencing here. I will try and leave out the bad police officers' names. And let's just make a couple things clear here in that before I moved here, I had a lot more respect for the police. I understand the kind of job that they're in. I understand the atmosphere that they're in. I know a lot of police. I grew up with a number of police. I've worked with some police. I've helped some police, including FBI. And what I've experienced here, beyond a nightmare, is incomprehensible. It's unbelievable what I'm about to tell you. Now, I have been doing mystery shops and business audits for a number of years. Secret shops, mystery shops, whatever you want to call it. I do video, audio recordings, hidden, revealed. Whenever I do, I report exactly the facts. I've done them for major companies, U.S. companies, foreign companies, the federal government. And along with that, in my number of years of experience as a mechanic, especially as a troubleshooter, diagnostician, however how you may say it, I'm very good at it, and I'm able to document and understand patterns, patterns that result in showing things, both mechanical, electrical, as well as people. The law enforcement considers anything with people as habits. And so everything I have documented. I have documentation in the forms of paper, over 3,000 pages. I have audio, video. I have audio from 911 call center. I have audio from police recordings. I have video from police. Actually, I'll write off the video of a police officer. There's a whole lot more that needs to be picked up, listened to, and watched if you want a better understanding of what actually has happened. Like I said, I have everything documented, dates, times, you name it, I have it. So I'm not here blowing smoke up anyone. There's a real problem with the police here. Not just here, it's all across the country and the nation, actually, and the world. But with this mentality of arming themselves and protecting themselves with armor gear and high performance weapons and you name it, whatever they've got, whatever the military has. These aren't police officers, they're military. And now with the fact that we've got someone up here trying to destroy our rights, civil rights, the Bill of Rights, the U.S. Constitution, it trickles all the way down to the local police. And that's exactly what's happened here. There's a pattern here. I know other people that are very close to here that has a lawsuit going with the same police force that I've been dealing with. It all happened at the same time. Police officers, some of them are gone. They've gone to other forces, which is very scary, which is what's happening here in the local area in the state of New Mexico. There's a lot of this that is a lot of wrongdoing, all the way through the fact of the practice in the court systems here, especially in the local magistrate court, where the DA's office allows police officers to prosecute cases, and especially against any case with anyone with a defense attorney. And it's even atrocious when there's a victim that's involved. I think the way that practice is just unconstitutional all the way around. Police officers decide to show up if they want to. In this case, you'll understand a real problem here. Maybe it's the way that the laws are written. Understanding that there is a defense attorney here that I did turn in twice. There's another attorney that I should turn in for his unconstitutional practice of sending me a letter and not allowing me to go to any city building. So if I walk into the city hall here to pay my water bill, I'm to be arrested. There's a sign with a picture on the counter at the water department there with everyone that knows about me is to call the police. You know, it's atrocious what's going on here. I've also done a look on the internet and found that you know, the same officers are involved in similar kind of cases with police harassment and lawsuits involved. But basically, I'll go through my story. Moved here in December 2009, 4 years ago. In doing so, we found that number of items with the house was incorrect and actually falls under fraud and forgery, which has been documented, turned over to the police or actually the FBI and the New Mexico Public Regulations Commissions, which hasn't done anything. All of that's documented. What happened is I got the keys to the house, tried to get water turned on. The way the water system was set up, the previous owner had not paid water, which the city does not allow new owners, whether you have an account here or not before, not to have any kind of an account until the previous bill is paid, no matter who it's by, which I think has been changed since. But that's the way it started. It took about 2 months, 3 months before I got some things straightened out with the real estate companies and the realtors and some of this fraud and forgery and the problems with the house. And I was able to go outside and do something with the house, which was to spray off 3 birds' nests up in my front patio area there by my front door. In doing so, I sprayed it down the driveway and it upset the next door neighbor. That was in March, April of 2010, which began the phone calls by him to the city and the police department, and everything that I did that he did not like, which included washing off my driveway, anything with the fence. The property line was messed up, which was part of the real estate problem. We did not have a gate for our backyard, and I had a number of dollars of tools and equipment, motorcycles and so on. I put up some security lights, security cameras, and immediately the neighbor got upset, called the police, and they sided with him, and it began the harassment. I immediately went to the city. I told the police at one time that what they're doing is harassment. If they don't stop, I'm going to file harassment against the police and the neighbor. I went down to the city hall, went to the city manager, told her I want to have a meeting, told her I didn't like what was going on. I wanted it to stop. I wanted a meeting with a number of the city people, and including the police chief. We had a meeting. I asked the police chief to have a meeting with the next door neighbors and to stop the harassment by the police and by the neighbor. The police chief called the neighbors. We set up a meeting. We had a meeting. There was an agreement made. The neighbors would leave me alone, the fence alone, because of the fact of the problem that we're having with the property line, which needed to be straightened out by the title company and so on. That was the least of my problems. The next thing I know, basically there was some peace. There was a lot of tension, of course, with the neighbor. His son and daughter-in-law moved in with their 2 daughters, and shortly thereafter, and there was just a lot of tension from that point on until about May, I think April or May of 2012. In the meantime, I thought everything was good. Been walking my dogs up and down the street. Had some issues with the abandoned irrigation ditch in my backyard. Also found out that that being since 1940s or 50s, nothing was done about it. The fence lines are there. Property, it shows it. The property easements. The utility easements is back there. Problem is the cable was outside the utility easement and actually in the abandoned irrigation ditch, as well as the telephone line was borderline and on the easement and the irrigation ditch, and as such both pedestals were placed right on top of the property line slash utility easement and the abandoned irrigation ditch. The cable line crossed the property line one way, and then the telephone line crossed the property line the other direction, going into the utility or going into the abandoned irrigation ditch, where they have run a line going to the business, which is next door to us at the corner in the back, which is a physical therapy business. And the way that they've had the telephone lines, they automatically go through the concrete underneath and through the abandoned irrigation ditch. So they're actually still out of code and they're actually crossing the utility easement through the property line. That whole corner is messed up. With that being the abandoned irrigation ditch over the years, what has happened is the water has flowed down and torn up the northwestern corner of the property. The fencing, as such, it also has flooded the yard a number of times, as per the next door neighbor, and has also damaged it's flooded the house, the property, and as such has also made a sinkhole out in front in the street, which I've had both addressed to the city with the council, and I had one of the council members and the mayor out here both telling me that basically I'm SOL, and the way everything is set up, that there's nothing that they can do, including this sinkhole. I then had the PRC out here, the gas company out here first, because this sinkhole is sitting on top of the gas line, or this gas line sitting on top of this sinkhole. Since we've been here, I have documented with pictures that the sinkhole keeps getting bigger, deeper, wider, and eventually I keep hearing my house creak in the front. You can see from the roof the circle throughout the street, from about halfway through the street, and the driveways, my house next door. Perfect circle. You can see it right centered in this sinkhole. Nobody believes me, but I'm watching it. I see it. So I've got pictures of it. With that, let's see, I've addressed these issues with the city, then it became the issues with the dogs. I'm walking my dogs with leashes, and then eventually put them on harnesses. We had 2 dogs. I eventually got 3 dogs. Walked in the same place for over a year, until the owners of one location moved one of their dogs, which eventually was able to get underneath the fence and attack me and my dogs. 4 days in a row, I had to call 911. 4 days there was no police reports. The only report that was written was by the animal control officer, which I saw on the 3rd day. The 2nd day, the person that approached after the 911 call was a security officer that was driving around in a police car, but he was not a police officer. This started my interest in the way that the police runs here. The 4th day is when I've been on some medical drugs, prescription drugs, that were not doing too good with me, and due to the fact that there was some medical misdiagnosis, and these drugs were actually killing me. On this 3rd day, I wound up going to the police station and having an anxiety attack, and talking with the police chief and the animal control officer about the situation. The paramedics were called and checked me and advised me to go to the hospital. The next day, the 4th day of this issue, 911, I called and wound up on the ground. The fire chief was at the scene and then showed up where I was at and asked me if I needed help, and I said yes. I said no at first, and then I said yes. He asked me why. I told him why, that I was having the same issue as I did yesterday at the police station. And the next thing I know, somebody else pulls up, a female in a white car pulls up, talks to him, and she pulls off, and he backs up and leaves me laying on the ground. A few minutes later, the animal control officer and the UPS driver drove by and saw me and assisted me. I then wound up later at the emergency room at the hospital everyone thinking I was having a heart attack. At that time, I first initially refused medical assistance by the paramedics, by the fire department, of the same fire department that this fire chief left me laying on the ground a few minutes earlier. After that, these folks, I've experienced the municipal judge practice over here, and that's another story. The security officer was there. He was told to say what was done at this scene the fourth day of this incident, when the citation was issued, or the summons was issued to the owner about his dog by the animal control officer, and he promptly was able to, word for word, say the same thing as the fire chief and the police officer, in that he was standing there and saw nothing in violation, but the problem was he was not there. He lied in court. And then why would these others, the three, be summoned to court or subpoenaed to court for the city as witnesses and then defend the defendant? There's something going on there. Then the judge didn't even look at my evidence and looked at the evidence of the defendant, which has a prior relation, or has a relation with someone that used to be a part of the city in a key position. Then the judge proceeded to ream the animal control officer, in which he's the only one that did his job. My jaw dropped to the ground and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But that's the practice here. Since that time, I refused to even go to this municipal court. So anything after that, they stuck me through the magistrate courts. Well, I've got a lot of issues with the magistrate court. And as if you'll see, go to the New Mexico Supreme Court and you can ask why judge that's been here for 15 years is no longer here. He stepped down in November. What was being done in his courtroom was unconstitutional. It violated civil rights. There's no telling how many people's civil rights have been violated in this city, in that courtroom, and no different in the municipal courtroom. Complete disregard for civilians' rights, which follows and trickles down to the police. Let's get to the police. After that incident with the dog, there was another incident around the corner here. I changed my route with my dogs. One of my dogs stuck his nose through a hole, which a child could actually stick his arm through, possibly his head, if it's small enough, like my dog did. Got his nose bit by the owner's dog on the other side. Fence is only 4 foot tall to start with. Well, fortunately, I was able to lean over and beat the dog off my dog. In doing so, my dog lost a tooth. I had to take him to the vet. I had bruised ribs. I had to go to the emergency room. Well, the following week, I'm walking different direction, but I'm walking by the same house. The owner comes out and starts threatening me. The threats were enough to where I just called 911. And then I thought, you know what? This city's not going to do anything. These cops aren't going to do anything. So I told them to forget about it. I walked home. A few minutes later, my wife tells me there's a police officer out here at the front door. I go to the door, and the officer's wanting to give me a ticket, wanting to look at my dog leashes and give me a ticket for my dog leashes. I told him to get out of here. Why are you coming to my house about my dog leashes, number one, when I'm the one that called 911 because a guy was threatening me? He was threatening to kick my ass. And you come to my house? No. I called the police chief. And he showed up with his lieutenant. Another officer was out here as well. You know, I'm dealing with medical issues. I'm dealing with this harassing neighbor. You know, the cops started harassing me when we first moved in here. So now here it is, about a year later. Not even, but almost a year later. Now I got these cops coming around here being stupid again. And I don't need this. And yes, I started getting angry. And I start yelling at them. And I don't understand, how stupid can these cops actually be? What do they teach them, these cops here, at your academy in this state? It's a joke. Well, that's the first practice. This cop no longer works here. He's now with the county, which is even scarier. He's got a bigger area to deal with and more people. I could tell you a lot more about him. In my background, I did my checking on him. And if I told you about him, it'd blow you away. This guy's a cop. Alright, so we can move on. Let's just move on. I'm tired. There's so many issues that just keeps getting worse here. And the same names keep popping up. And the same name that keeps showing up at my house. I've got the police reports. I've got everything documented. And I can show you the pattern. I can show you the severity of what they're doing. The increasing accusations, false accusations, lies on police reports. How about going up to the point where one story is I get a kid that is accusing me, flies up in his car, tells me he's going to kick my fucking ass. Yes. I'm in a state of shock. I'm walking 3 dogs. There's 2 little girls there with a loose dog. And then yet, long story short, he lied, as well as the woman that lives there, which we've had issues with, which they're running a business out of their house, auto repair business, out of a residential area. They've been warned for years. I've got proof of it. They should be turned into the IRS. They have local ties here. Everything gets dropped when they go to the municipal court here. I've got it documented. They conspire. Pull the videotapes from those police officers. There's 4 or 5 of them there. Even the chief was standing there. They conspired a story and charged me. The day I went to court at the magistrate court for these charges for the arraignment, I had an anxiety attack, which I have the video of the police officer and the audio of the lieutenant of their harassment inside the courts, a side room, where I'm having an anxiety attack and they're telling me to get up. Go have let's have a talk in this room. I go in there and all they do is harass me. They see that I'm having a problem, so they ask that they get medical attention. Well, first thing they call is their paramedics. Well, I already told them forget their paramedics. They're not looking at me. They're not touching me. Their fire chief left me laying on the ground. These guys are not touching me. They asked about ambulance. I said, you can send the ambulance in. I undid my shirts for the ambulance. I thought they were going to put like an EKG machine on. She just came in and checked me with a stethoscope. Then after waiting on signing the papers for an attorney and telling these cops about my medical issues, I had just found out that I had Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Look it up. It's incurable, number 1. I told them what they were doing was harassing. After I sign my paperwork for an attorney, I go home. I get up and I leave. A week later, I get paperwork in the mail from the court charging me with disorderly conduct. And on the paperwork, the police officer states on there that he felt like I had no medical issues. And that he also said that I refused medical attention from both from the paramedics and from the ambulance service. I've got the bill for it. I hope he'd like to pay for it. Since I'm not going to sue the city, which I should have, but I'm not, and you'll understand why later. So now I've got 2 cases against me. 2 different charges against me. The first one was so bogus, but I had so many officers that were against me, and this buildup over the years of the harassment and my arguing and unbelievable treatment of them, it brought out the worst in me, I can tell you. But I wasn't going to stand down to these guys. You know, so here I get discharged. Well, let me tell you, 4 days earlier, a federal judge granted me full disability because of my medical issues. The chief knew I was seeing a disability attorney in September when I told him, when I was charged against the other issues, which was eventually dropped or discharged or whatever they did, dismissed. This second case, the officer didn't even show up in court. Now it gets even better. In October, we buried my father-in-law. For 6 days, I kept getting prank phone calls by a private number. When the second to the last day, he told me that I couldn't find out who he was because he had a private number. So that night I went home. I set myself up an 800 number, knowing that by federal law, 800 numbers have to generate a phone number that's being called to it. And in this, I also got this program would send me an email with the information on who called, or the phone number. So the next day, that night I finished up my new animal control ordinances for the city. I sent it to him in the morning. On my way to the courthouse, the municipal courthouse, for the lady around the corner here next door to the people with the auto repair business that's been filing complaints for years. And here we go again. I go to court for her. Well, the first thing I see in there is, number one, this fire chief that actually sits there and admits to illegal search and seizure on the same couple that lives around the corner that's being harassed by the cops. He's talking about how he went into their property and illegally he searched their premises. He searched bags without a warrant. The whole thing that he did was totally illegal. Now, I'm there for a different issue. I go outside and I'm waiting and I'm talking to a little bit to an officer, police officer that's off duty but is there for a different case. Okay, we go through the courtroom, blah, blah, blah. I do my thing and I leave. About 15, 20 minutes later, after I'm home, all of a sudden my phone starts ringing with the prank phone calls with the private number. I let them go to voicemail, or actually the forwarding to the 800 number, voicemail. A few minutes later, or a couple minutes later, I get another call, and I start getting the emails. That shows me the phone number. I call up the phone number. First, I look it up on the internet, and it shows out of Gallup. I could have paid $5 to find out who owns it, but I figured I'd let the police do it. I call the police, Gallup police. It's on my documentation. Tell them what happens. They tell me to go to the local police. Before I do, I call that number up and I leave a couple messages. Kind of laughed back at the guy and told him, well, you told me that I couldn't find your number and who you were. I'm on my way to the police station because I got your number. Don't know who you are. I could hit the internet here, and I could hit the button and pay $5 and find out who you are, but I'll let the police do it. So later that day, I go to the police station. I sit down with the chief, and before I even sit down, he says to me, he says, it's interesting you come in because I got something to ask you. And I'm like, okay. So I give him the information that I have, the documentation, the emails, and so on, of this prank phone caller. He goes over to his computer, he looks up the phone number, he wheels back over, and he goes, well, this is very interesting because one of my officers tells me that you called him today and left a message. I'm like, well, and he goes, he recognized you by your voice because I didn't leave my name. And I thought, well, the only person I called is the person that prank phone called me for the last 6 days. And it stunned both of us. Because we know who it is. I even have an email by the chief stating that officer made those phone calls to my number. I also have it on that audio or the video of the lieutenant making claim of exactly what I stated on the voicemail about how I don't play games. He stated word for word to me. I can't remember if they're cut off or not. I know one of them it is. They only will let you hear what they want you to hear once you get the full tapes. So, the next day, I talked to my wife the next day, she wants the full investigation. She wants to find out what the heck is going on here. Why are they harassing me? She emails the city, gets no response. I email the city and the chief, tell them I want a full investigation. The chief tells me if I want an outside source, which I have the full right to go outside, I can go to the city, the county. I figured the county's too close to this place, I'd go to the state. So I went to the state. They refused to do an investigation here on another police officer. The local police chief called the lieutenant for the state police in this county and told them the same thing. I was angry. I got on the phone with the chief of the state of New Mexico and told him this is wrong and I'm on my way to the FBI, which the FBI has this information. So does the Attorney General's office. And I did send a copy to I didn't send it to the governor yet. Four months later, I find out from the local police chief that the state police, they did come to my house and get the information that I had. That they closed the case and found no wrongdoing. I immediately called Internal Affairs. Talked to the major. I called twice. The first time I called and left a message. He never got that call. He only got the second call I made to his office. Now, somehow someone up there called and talked to the lieutenant that was in charge of this county here, and they reopened the case because he didn't like what he heard after he spoke with me. Well, 2 weeks later, he wound up being transferred somewhere else. New lieutenant took over temporarily until a third lieutenant finally took over. What they finally did find out is that the brother of the local police officer that made those phone calls, I suspect, made admittance to making those calls. And was charged phone harassment by telephone. He admitted to it. The phone number was actually registered to the mother of the two. Now, here's where it gets more interesting. Because the brother that was actually charged, I met him twice when I did business audits on their business, on their tire center. I met the mother at that time too. Somehow we got into a conversation about police problems, and I kind of mentioned that, yeah, I had to get one of these local police officers out of my house because of the way he acted. It wound up being her son. So she tried to get me in trouble back then. It's all documented. What I suspect happened is the police officer's son got caught with using the mother's cell phone, or the phone that he uses that the mother owns, and I'll bet you that he uses it during his time at work. That day that I called that number and found out who was prank phone calling me, he had his phone number changed, as per the lieutenant told him to. His brother was charged. Problem is his brother is in charge of the repair shop at the business. And at the time that those calls were made, I can guarantee you it is impossible for that kid to have made those calls. And then it gets deeper in the aspect of that police officer the police officer by the state that did the investigation never subpoenaed me to either of the court dates to start with, and then did not show up on the second one, the same day, October 4th, that I went to surgery, which was finally changed from the different judge, from the judge that's no longer with the state, because of the practice that happened on the first date that we went to trial. Number one, there is no attorney for the state, which is part of the DA's fault, or the state laws the way they're written, and most of them are written anyway by defense lawyers. Let's get real. Then the uncouth way the immoral way, unethical way that the defense attorney, took over this case when it had already started in front of the first judge that's no longer there. And the entire ethics of what happened in that courtroom is wrong. And to me, needs to be investigated for violations of civil rights, because I can guarantee you there's a number of cases that has been through there if that's the way they treat people in there. And you don't have any state attorneys prosecuting and allowing police officers to prosecute if they feel like it, if they feel like showing up, which is a sad thing for the state and the people. And it's a sad thing for these police officers to be put into that position as well. That's not their job. It's one thing if they were witnesses. Let's go to another situation. I'm out here in my driveway. 2 dogs are running loose consistently. The same dogs run loose around here. They've already been called on a number of times. One of them being the business owner that has the business at his residence. The other one, this is the second issue with this guy, bail bondsman. He's on the same standards as a police officer is. But he's overwatched by the insurance board. I've looked it up. His dog is running loose. He gets upset because his dog, he gets a ticket. So he comes over here in my circle with his daddy in his truck, and they pull up at the street stop sign, and they open their door and they start threatening me. And the daddy is over there opening the door, and he's got a little gun down there, a little pea shooter, threatening me. Come over here, let me show you something. I'm in my driveway. I'm a couple 100 feet away. Easy. My wife hears this commotion. She had just gotten home. It's early in the morning. She comes to the door and sees what's going on. These guys are coming towards me, making threats about kicking my ass. I'm tired of this crap here. I throw my phone down. I kick my shoes off. I'm ready to get after it. Let's go. The old man's like, oh, I'm 62 years old. Good. Let's see. I don't think I've put a 62-year-old man's face first into the ground before. You'll be the first. So you both want to come at me now, together, or separately? Let's go. At the same time, my wife is on 911, describing the situation, describing where everybody is at. I've got the 911 call. Thank God they were able to find that one. There's some that the 911 call center, by federal law, is supposed to have, but they haven't been able to find the calls yet. But they have this one. So here my wife is describing the situation where everybody is at. I'm in my driveway. They're out in the middle of the street coming towards me, making threats at me. It's on the call. They eventually turned around and left. As soon as they left, the police show up. The first one that shows up is the same cop that charged me with the disorderly conduct when I was having the anxiety attack. I have this on video as well, off of his shirt. I told him kindly and politely to leave. I wasn't talking to him 3 times as I walked towards my door, despite what his report has to say on it. And actually, it's not his report. It's another officer's report. This cop was told to leave. I know by my wife, for one. As soon as I closed the security door, the metal security door, he starts beating on it. I close the front door and I lock everything. My wife starts yelling at me. I start yelling back. I'm tired of this place. I am fed up. I'm dealing with the house problems. I'm dealing with my medical problems. We have not had a good day since we moved here. So you don't have a clue how angry I get with these moron cops. And I'm saying it. Because I don't know what they're thinking. But they're not here for the people. And there are good cops. But there's those standout ones here are not good. The chief is a puppet. He has no balls. Nice guy. But he's a puppet to this city. The problem is this city. It's the leaders in this city. It's the city council, the mayor. That security officer that showed up in a police car, he's the mayor's son, nephew. Need I say more? So, cops show up. The one shows up, I tell him to leave. He refuses. He's out here beating on my door. I'm yelling at my wife. She's yelling back at me. I get on the phone. I call 911. I call 911 and tell them to get a real cop out there. Now, the problem there is, I got the 911 tape. And the problem is, that's been cut out. That part of it about get a real cop out here has been cut out. I then get on the phone and call Congressman Pierce's office and talk with Mary down there. Because they've been helping me get my disability things squared away. So now I'm on the phone with Mary. My wife is dealing with these ignorant cops. In the meantime, the lieutenant and the chief show up here again. I'm on the phone talking to Mary, telling her what the hell is going on, and I want my money so I can get out of here. I cannot handle this. This is February of this year, 2013. Or the end of January. I got the date. There's another issue that happened with the next door neighbor with his son that never even lived over here. Then I'm upset. I'm going off. The cops finally get the one officer out of here. I calm down. I go out and I talk to him. First thing I say is to the chief, I know these laws better than your cops do, and I know my rights better than your cops do. And the chief agreed with me. Now, nothing happened to the guys that made threats to me. They came over with a gun. But just to cover myself, I went to get a copy of the police report. Oh my God. You talk about a setup, folks. You want to see a setup? Pull that report, and then you go pull the 911 tape, and you compare them. And then you get the officer that was actually out here, and you get his video, or the lieutenant's video. I don't think the chief has one. And you compare to what actually happened. You want to talk about lies on a police report? Not just by the two guys, one being the bail bondsman and his daddy, or daddy-in-law, I don't know who, but the cops. Cops lie. And they lie big time. And you understand, if you read that report, and I've got a copy, so they can change whatever they want to. Read the report. Listen to the audio from 911. There is no comparison. Look at my email, the email from my wife to the city, which she got no response. None. It's a pure setup, people. And you can see the pattern to it. And do you know who approves these reports? The lieutenant does. His name also shows up on the internet for other harassment cases. Look it up. Yeah, 2 years ago, I was on the ground. Something came over me. I'm not on those psycho drugs. I'd like to build another 200-mile-an-hour motorcycle. Let somebody else ride it. I feel good, people. I had a surgery that removed a foot of colon on October 4th. It was so bad that it had started collapsing on the inside of itself. It had also started attaching itself to other organs, to other areas around it. It literally almost killed me. Yeah, I don't have any medical issues. I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Look it up. I've already said that once. It's incurable. It's your autoimmune system attacking a perfectly good thyroid is what it is. I have a whacked out autoimmune system. If you can figure it out, go tell the doctors because they can't figure it out. That's what I've been dealing with. I don't have any medical problems. No. What does this cop know? Yeah, I am angry. I'm mad. But you know what? 10 days after that surgery, and realizing that that state cop part of that conspiracy failed his duties to the state, to the people? For what? To protect his friend? Who knows? I don't know. You know, you got judges in on this, you got the cops in on that. It's like the citizens here have no way to get around anything. There's no fairness. There's no attorneys here. A DA's office that allows cops to prosecute cases. What kind of a joke is that? That's sick, people. I could tell you something about that magistrate judge. My wife used to work the ambulance service here. She had a grandfather that was the police chief here. One of her cousins was the mayor here. Her ex-father-in-law was a police chief here and owned the ambulance service. Oh, I could go way back with some history, with some information here. You know, I told these cops to stop 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Leave me alone. I only came here to help my wife and her family. Her dad was going on dialysis. His kidneys went down to 15%. He passed away September 29, 2012. And what happens? I get harassed. Is that the way people are treated around here? Is that the cops flexing their muscle? Yeah, we had a cop out here on one of the issues with the next door neighbor that refused to talk to my wife. She owns this house. My name's on the title, on the deed. The mortgage is in her name, and the cop refused to talk to her. This place is biased. I've told my wife, I have not seen so much prejudice in an area, and I've lived in the South almost all of my life. And in that time, I have not seen the amount of prejudice that I see here. She thought I was kidding. I hear this more and more now from people around here that aren't from here. You think the thing about people are related, somebody's related to somebody here is a joke? It's for real. You know, it may be almost close to the deep South with, you know, the boonies and the incest, but, you know, it's awful dang close, I tell you. The Good Old Boy Network, they ain't got nothing on this place. That's why there's so much of this going on around here. If you're not from here, you're screwed, people. Yeah, the bail bondsman has never been charged yet for any of his threats. It's the second time I've had to call 911 on him with his threats. I've got it documented with the lies on the police reports, the way they were written by both the police and by the witness, the whatchamacallit, the suspect. Oh, and on this second time, I was listed as the suspect. He was listed as the victim. And it states that I went to his truck and beat on his tailgate or something and wouldn't allow him to get out of his truck. I wasn't near his truck. Listen to the 911 tape. Like I said, doesn't even come close to the facts. You know, you can't get, if you came here with the facts, the cops don't use video. I have video of stuff here. After the next door neighbor was evicted, I've got him on video, 911 calls, when he comes over trying to break into their house and steal stuff back. He stole stuff from me. I've got him pulling up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on video. I've got the next door neighbor making threats to me on video, which wasn't used in the case against him that happened about the same time as the charges against the cop brother. This whole place is a joke when it comes to rights, people. It's written up so bad that it's against people's rights here. You don't have any rights here. I caught the judge doing something illegal as heck to the next door neighbor that was evicted out of there. That's why that judge is no longer here. I filed complaints with the New Mexico Bar Disciplinary Board against that defense attorney here. Well, they're not going to do anything. He's the son of someone special. There is no fairness here. There's more of this story. There's a lot more. I have a lot more. I have it documented. I have over 3,000 pages of it. I made 4 copies of it. It's cost me over about $1,400. I turned in copies to the FBI, like I've stated. 2 sets to the Attorney General's office about the police harassment. They don't do anything now, they tell me. Well, they didn't tell me anything about it then. They've got copies of all the audio, some of the audio, the ones that I could get. There's more I could get, but I'm tired of spending money. So October 4th, I go in and get a surgery done. Ten days later, we suspect I had a heart attack. And at that time, I had a near-death experience, an out-of-body experience. I called it a travel, or later a spiritual experience. You call me whatever you want. I know what I saw. And I know what I was told. And that 5 months I spent doing these documents, copying day and night, reliving this nightmare. I'm to forgive. All of it. In this experience, I was told to let it go. Let it go. I was told to let it go. I'll take care of it. That was in my conversations with God. And in that, he told me, I need to learn forgiveness. And I have to start with the police. That was heavy. I want to sue this city for what they've put me and my wife through. Because what they're doing is wrong. There's another couple right around the corner that's got a lawsuit against the city. There's another thing that just happened, or just showed up on the newspaper that happened last year with a detective. He no longer is allowed to be a cop in this state because of what he violated somebody's civil rights. The pattern's there. You see it all the time here. And it's not just here. The feds are here in this city of Albuquerque because of all the police shootings. You know, I did warn these cops to back off and leave me alone. I've got a friend and she's a federal attorney. She practices civil rights. Her husband is also a federal attorney at the Pentagon. Her best friend is one of the head honchos at the Department of Justice in the civil rights. And they're getting a copy of this, as well as all the information they already have. I don't know how much she's been given. But instead of me suing everybody, I'm told to let it go and forgive all of you. And I began to do that on the morning of the day before Halloween. I went to the local police. I dropped them one of those copies of the 3,000 plus documents and audio and video and 911s and all that stuff. I left them with a copy and said, you guys can keep it. I forgive all of you. I'm not going to sue you. I went home feeling good. I felt like I dropped a huge weight off of my shoulder. That night, about 2:30 in the morning, I woke up with chest pain, laying on my left side again. I rolled over to my right, and it just about killed me. Major heart attack. Major heart attack. I am so lucky, so blessed. God will take care of everything. He's taking care of everything. You guys can do with this whatever you want to do. I've got the evidence. If you want it, the least you could do is pay for it, so I can get some of my money back. But I have it. And all my videos is going on YouTube. That's why I didn't put any names to this, because I'm supposed to use this in the forgiveness, in my learning forgiveness. I have to go out and teach or preach or share or whatever it is. I still am not clear on. But I'm supposed to use this experience for others to forgive, to learn to forgive, or to help them forgive. Because of the fact that all of these people that I've gone to in the time of I need some help, which you would expect calling 911, calling a police, calling the ambulance, calling the fire department, that they would show up and help. But in this town, it seemed to be you call up and you're the problem. Even though all these people have their dogs running loose here, there is such a problem with dogs running loose here. And they don't address the problem. Oh yes, they've recently done it because of the fact they know I was complaining enough, and I kept telling the other people to go to the feds about these other problems, about the way that the municipal court runs over here and the favoritism that's played. It's not just here, though. I know that. It's a normal little town anywhere in America. And now it's becoming the big towns. Now it's becoming all the way up to the feds. You know, all I know is what I saw in that experience and what I was told. And the corruption is unbelievable that's going on throughout the entire world, not just this little town. But we've also lost faith in the people that we trust that's supposed to help us. They're against us too. A number of them are. It's becoming increasingly dangerous to even walk the streets. Not just by thugs, but by thugs with badges. Got a real problem. Real reason I'm not also turning this bigger, because of the fear of what some of these cops may do. If you want to know the honest truth, my wife is deathly fearful. That's why I've also told 911, the state cops, the feds, the FBI, the local cops, don't send the local cops to my house. I won't call 911 either. I don't need them showing up here. I got it off my chest. You got a little bit of clearness of what's gone on here. There's a whole lot more. I've got the evidence. And like I said, not all evidence is available. Not even all the 911 calls. The local police seem to lose or misplace audio and video so conveniently, which I think by federal law they're supposed to keep everything. I know 911 centers are. You know? It's a half-ass run place. What can you say? You got to take care of yourself here. The thugs are running loose. They get off by the defense attorneys, the same ones that write the laws here, that protect them more than the victims and the people. Every state around this state has a stand your ground law. This state tells you to run. And like I said, it's all set up for the crooks. That's why there's so much of it going on here. Probably why the cops are so mean as they are. But you guys take care of it. You do your own thing. As long as they leave me alone. I've got God on my side. I've got Jesus Christ as my Savior. My faith has been strong for the last 2 years. The day I was on the ground, told to get off those drugs, and I did. Survived a major operation that should have killed me. I'm surprised it didn't since, June, when I went into the emergency room for the 4th time this year. And the hospital did nothing. I'm surprised I didn't die. I was fortunate enough to find a surgeon that took that out of me. It's healed me so much. Then we suspect I had one heart attack 10 days later, and then a second one that almost killed me on Halloween. So God's left me here for a reason. And that's, as I understand, has to do with forgiveness. I forgive the city. I forgive the mayor. I forgive the fire chief. I forgive the police officers, the municipal judge, the magistrate judge, the district attorney's office, the defense attorney. You know who you are. Both magistrate judges, actually. The New Mexico Bar Association Disciplinary Board, the city's attorney, the city manager, and the city for not allowing me to approach them to apologize for one, but to also forgive them for the way they've treated me. And they refused to have me come to their council meeting and approach them with that. They don't believe me, is what I was told by the chief. But yet they allowed to violate my rights with their police department, as well as with their water department, the city allowing their mayor, attorney to have a sign posted with my picture on it, and sending me a letter not allowing me to go step foot into the city buildings, that's a violation of law. I forgive all of you. I don't have to do anything anymore. I did what I was told to do. You do whatever you want. Just leave me alone. I'm worshiping God. Jesus Christ is my Savior. And I don't need you guys. Happy New Year. God bless. Peace.